Good evening. Welcome to the December 6th, 2022 City of Minot Planning Commissioning meeting. Just a quick reminder to put your cell phones on silent if you could so that there's no disruptions. Let's go to call the roll, please.
Bauman? Demakis?
Yeah.
Domes?
Yes.
Bacon?
Yes.
Gates? Hochhalter?
Yes.
Iverson?
Yes.
Kibler?
Here.
Leiter? Nesdall?
Yes.
Offerdahl?
Here.
Fontanilla?
Yes.
Wagonest?
Here.
You have a quorum.
All right. Everybody stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, moving on. I'm looking for an approval for the October 4th, October 4th, 2022 regular meeting minutes. Is that November 4th?
Motion to approve.
Motion by Demakis.
Second.
By Domes. Call the roll.
Bauman? Demakis?
Yes.
Domes?
Yes.
Bacon?
Yes.
Gates? Hochhalter?
Yes.
Iverson?
Yes.
Kibler?
Yes.
Leiter? Nesdall?
Yes.
Offerdahl?
Yes.
Fontanilla?
Yes.
Wagonest?
Yes.
Motion carries.
All right, moving on. We're gonna skip or add something here. We just got a special recognition here from staff. I'll turn it over to staff at this time.
Thank you, Chairman Offerdahl. So yeah, we just wanted to take a minute to recognize Commissioner Charles Demakis for at least 5 years of service to the Planning Commission. This will be his last month, as well as Commissioner Todd Wagonest, who's actually had over 15 years of service on the Planning Commission. So this will be their last month. We do have 2 replacements appointed that'll start January 2023, but just really wanted to thank you for your service and your dedication to coming every month as much as you could and sitting with us for 2 hours, which are not always the most fun experiences, and reviewing applications with some of your fellow Minotians. So it's definitely can be a hard task for any one of these planning commissioners. And so really want to extend thanks to all of you as well, because this is not an easy job. It's volunteer-based, and you're sitting up here on your free time to spend and evaluate land use applications, and it's not exactly exciting, but it's extremely important. So just wanted to say thank you. And 5 years and 15 years, it's a lot of time to spend and a lot of experience walking away. And so I just really appreciate that time and dedication to evaluating land development within the city of Minot. So thank you. We will be, we do have some plaques on the way, just with all the delays and everything that's going on. I'll probably just hand deliver them in the next couple weeks. But anyway, also here is Mayor Ross to give his appreciation as well.
Thank you, John. And thank you, Mr. Chairman, for giving me a few moments. I want to thank you for giving me that phone call yesterday and the great conversation we had. It's long overdue. And, you know, the work that you do for the city, it makes my job, and I can speak on behalf of the council, it makes our job easier. And I'm just going to echo what John said. You know, you guys never have a 15-minute meeting. It's never. So you guys put in a lot of time, a lot of volunteer time, but the growth of the city starts right here with this commission. Just think about that. The work that you've done is helping our city grow, and I couldn't be more proud of the effort that you've put together. You know, the hard work and the sausage making you do here, and then I'm the one who gets to help turn a shovel when they break ground or cut a ribbon. That's not right. And Mr. Chairman and the commission, I pledge to you that moving forward, that members of the commission, the Planning Commission, will be recognized and will be invited to take part in the finished product, because you've earned it, you've deserved it, and it's just right. It's the right thing to do. So thank you all. I do want to also say thank you to Commissioner Demakis and Commissioner Wegness. I do have a couple of mayor's coins for you for your hard work and dedication to the commission. It's a token of my appreciation for your dedication and your work to the city of Minot. So thank you so much, and thank you for what you do.
Thank you. Well said, guys. I also want to thank you guys for your dedication and service as well. Okay, moving on to item number 5. We're going to do an abbreviated waiving of the presentation on this number 5. It's a case 2022-12-4 interim use permit for the Souris River Basin Joint Board representing the Minot Area Development Corporation, owner for an interim use permit for mining or extraction of mineral and aggregate resources. The property is legally described as Lot 1, Minot AG, Complex 7th Edition, and the southeast quarter section of Section 8, Township 155, Range 82 West, lying within the city limit, City of Minot, Ward County, North Dakota. Address is 1725 42nd Street Northeast, in the portion of the unaddressed property immediately to the north. So with that, we're gonna do abbreviated, so we're gonna waive the staff's presentation. So I'll open it up to the public hearing. Is there anybody that wishes to speak on behalf of this project? And anybody wish to speak on behalf of this project in attendance today? Anybody willing or wishing to speak? Oh, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, I just wanted to let you know my name is Donna Bai, and I'm from Houston Engineering, if anyone has any questions.
Okay, thank you. Is there anybody that wishes to speak in opposition of this project or this interim use permit? Anybody? Anybody wishing to speak either for or against this project? If not, I'll close the public hearing. Turn it over to the commissioners for a motion.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, is there no recommendation from John Fitzgerald and his office? You're not addressing it?
So the recommendation is to approve, and with one condition being the termination date is January 12th, 2027.
And that termination date is the result, what's the warrant for that?
So every interim use permit, Derek, if you could help me out with the thanks. Every interim use permit needs to have a termination date because it's interim by the nature of the permit being requested. This particular date was pulled directly out of the contract between the landowner and the Souris River Joint Board. So it aligns with their request.
I'll make a motion to approve based on staff finding of fact and conditions or recommendations.
I
Motion to
second.
approve by Commissioner Wagnus, second by Commissioner Kibler. Any discussion? Any discussion? Okay, with that, let's call the roll.
Demakis?
Yes.
Domes?
Yes.
Bacon?
Yes.
Hochhalter?
Yes.
Iverson?
Yes.
Kibler?
Yes.
Nesdal?
Yes.
Offerdahl?
Yes.
Yes.
Montanilla? And Wagonist?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay, moving on to item number 6.
And Mr. Chairman, you know I'm recusing myself from this item because I'm a party to the sale.
Okay. Make it noted that Commissioner Kibler has recused himself from this item number. So case number 2022-12-01. This is a public hearing requested by Robert Kibler, Kayla Schmidt, Kelly Drecke, owners for the preliminary plat to subdivide 2 unplatted parcels of land into 3 lots within the AG district. The subdivision is to be known as Kibler, Doifel, Drecke, Schmidt subdivision and is legally described as an unplatted portion of northwest quarter and the northwest quarter, northeast quarter, section 25, township 156 north, range 883 west to the city of Minot, North Dakota. One property is addressed at 72nd Avenue Northeast, and the other property is unaddressed, lying east of 872nd Avenue Northeast. That will turn it over to city staff.
Thank you, Chairman Offerdahl and members of the commission. So the subject property is bounded in white, and it's located near the northern limit of the extraterritorial area, which is shown in that light blue. So the property is approximately a quarter mile east of Highway 83. The property is zoned agricultural. And the subject property does not maintain a future land use designation. So the proposed plat would take a 79-acre piece of property and 40-acre piece of property to create one approximately 70-acre piece of property and 2 22-acre properties. So all 3 lots meet the bulk requirements of the AG Agricultural District. Here's a picture of the property. So here's the findings of fact. The project satisfies the approval criteria except for section 10.2-3 related to subdivision names. So staff is recommending the name be changed to KDDS subdivision or something suitable to abbreviate the last names and truncate the length of the legal description. The purpose for this requirement is to avoid complicated or easily misspelled legal descriptions that could affect the accuracy of legal and financial documentation. So ultimately, Planning Commission has the authority to recommend approval, approve with conditions, or deny the application. Staff is recommending approval with that one condition that the name be amended to KDDS subdivision or a suitable alternative. And I'll stand for questions.
Any questions for city staff? Any questions for city staff? Right, seeing none, we'll open the public hearing. Is there anybody in attendance that wishes to speak on behalf of this agenda item? Anybody wishes to speak on behalf? Is there anybody that wishes to speak in opposition? Is there anybody that'd like to speak for or against this project, this agenda item? Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing. Turn it over to the commissioners for a motion.
I'll move to approve based on staff's finding of fact and recommendations with a change to the subdivision to KDDS subdivision.
I'll second.
Second, motion to approve by Demakis, second by Holkalter. Okay, any questions? Any discussion? I guess I have one quick question, and if somebody's here to speak on behalf of this, is the amended name going to be any issues?
I'm recused, so I guess I can respond to that. I would prefer our names to be on it so that through time immemorial, we're platted here in North Dakota, but not any really strong objections.
Okay. So I guess based on the approval and the motion right now, it is a motion to approve it with the amended or alternative names. So you're okay with that? Yes. Okay. Any other questions? Okay. With that, call the roll.
Demekis?
Yes.
Gomes?
Yes.
Bacon?
Yes.
Hochhalter?
Yes.
Iverson?
Yes.
Kibler? Oh, no vote, that's right. Nesdall?
Yes.
Offerdahl?
Yes.
Fontanella?
Yes.
Wagonist?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay, moving on to item number 7 on our agenda. Case 2022-12-3 variance, Country Paws Daycare. Public hearing request from Kelsey Self, Represented David John Jr., owner for the variance to the use standards that apply to kennels within M1 Light Industrial District. The specific use standards requested to be varied are located in section 4.1-6K related to the minimum lot size of 2 acres and the minimum distance of an exterior dog run shall be located to any property line or residential district or use, being 100 feet and 500 feet respectively. The request would reduce these distances to approximately 10 feet and 300 feet. The legal description for the property is Outlook 1 of the Southwest Quarter, Northwest Quarter, Section 22, Township 155 North, Range 82 W West, lying within the city of Minot, Ward County, North Dakota. The lot is presently 1 acre in size. The address is 325 55th Street Southeast. Turn it over to staff.
Thank you, Chairman Demekis, or, my bad.
that's
Won't
okay.
happen again. I'm Chairman Offerdahl, members of the commission. So the 1 acre property is located off of 55th Street Southeast, just south of the rail yard and north of Highway 2 East. The existing kennel use is classified as legal non-conforming, and that's due to its size, the lot size, that is. The applicant seeks to demolish the current building and expand the kennel use at this location, and this requires a variance to the setbacks to the neighboring property lines and residential uses of 100 foot and 500 feet respectively. In addition to a variance to the minimum 2 acre lot size requirement is needed. So the area is largely surrounded by heavy industrial land uses, as you can see from the aerial, most notably automobile salvage yards to the west and to the east. 2 residences exist to the north, starting at approximately 300 feet from the property boundary, which is where that pink line is. So the property is zoned M1 Light Industrial District, and you can see the variety of different adjoining zoning districts. So M2 Heavy Industrial District surrounds the property to the northeast and south. There's a bit of C2 General Commercial District to the west across 55th Street Southeast. And while it's not easily seen in this image, the property is within city limits. So it's kind of just kind of carve out on 55th. Here's the future land use map. So the subject property and surrounding area designated industrial on the future land use map. And here's a picture of the property facing to the northeast. This is a site plan, preliminary site plan that was submitted as part of their application. So the new kennel would be laid out similar to what is shown here. So the map, this map is something new I tried to include in a couple of the applications, but it shows distances from the subject property at 100 feet, 300 feet, 500 feet. And so highlighted in light blue at the top of the image are the property boundaries of the residentially used properties to the north, for which the same owner has provided a letter of support for the project. The letter is Exhibit 3 of staff's written report. Again, the request surrounds reducing the distance from the kennel property to neighboring residential uses from 500 feet to 300 feet, reducing the setback to the property boundary for the outdoor run from 100 feet to 10 feet, and a reduction to the minimum lot size from 2 acres to 1 acre. So staff does find that a unique hardship exists that was not created by the landowner. The multitude of uses in this area is the product of pyramidal zoning, and so I've probably discussed this at least one other time to this commission, but pyramidal zoning is where less intensive uses are commonly found within heavy intensity districts. So in this case, effectively whatever is permitted in lesser intense districts is then there allowed in heavier intense districts. And this is why you get salvage yards located right next to single-family residential housing. It's not an ideal situation. And it makes it very difficult for an industrial use to abide by certain setback and distancing requirements when you have this variety of different uses all crammed into the same locations. Kind of the purpose of zoning is to separate disharmonious land uses. Pyramidal zoning facilitates disharmonious land uses being adjacent to one another. So that's why we moved away from that. So as far as negatively affecting rights of nearby property owners, the 2 neighboring residential properties within the affected area have provided that letter of support, as well as plans for the residential structure to the south there, but that's 245 55th Street Southeast. It's indeterminate. It's not in great repair, and the future of that structure itself is uncertain. So one thing that the letter of support did note is that there is no intention of renting it out. It's currently vacant, and so its residential use is actually not being exercised right now. And also want to point out that the setbacks, the distancing to residential uses and property lines, as well as lot size requirements, are strictly there to ensure that a particular use doesn't become a nuisance. And so I'm hoping this image is pretty clear that the kennel use is probably one of the least intense uses within the vicinity, and therefore never intended to have certain setback requirements apply to ensure that the salvage yards to the east and the west aren't affected by a kennel use, for example. And that is the premise of why staff is recommending approval. So here are the findings of fact. Being a variance, the Planning Commission has the authority to approve with conditions, or deny the variance. And so staff is recommending approval with no conditions. And I'll stand for questions.
Any questions for the staff, commissioners?
I have a quick question, if I may.
Commissioner Wagner, go ahead.
I'm just curious, if that property become a rental property again, does it change anything with the application?
It won't. Chairman Offerdahl, Commissioner Wiggins, it won't change anything. Whatever's granted today, I get the circumstances could change. If they were to demo that structure, they could rebuild in the existing footprint. However, I think the odds of that happening, given the probably less desirable nature of that as a residential area, it's probably not likely to happen. So.
Any other questions for staff? Seeing none, I'll open the public hearing. Is there anybody in attendance that wishes to speak on behalf of this agenda item? Is there anybody in the public that would like to speak on opposition of this agenda item? Anybody want to speak in opposition or for this agenda item? Seeing none, close the public hearing and turn it over to commissioners for a motion.
motion to approve based on staff's recommendation and planning condition, adopt findings of fact and approve the request for the variance.
Motion to approve by Commissioner Iverson,
I'll second it.
second by Commissioner Nestor. Any discussion? Any discussion? Seeing none here, we'll call the roll.
Demekis.
Yes.
Domes. Bacon.
Yes.
Oakhalter.
Yes.
Iverson.
Yes.
Kibler.
Yes.
Nesdall.
Yes.
Offerdahl.
Yes.
Pontanella.
Yes.
And Wagonist.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay, moving on to agenda item number 8, case 2022-12-02, preliminary plat, conditional use permit. It's a public hearing request by Matthew Kramer representing James and Pamela Mosted to subdivide an existing parcel of unplatted land into 3 properties. 2 lots will comprise the proposed subdivision to be named Kramer Addition, while the remainder land will be unplatted as it falls outside a City of Minot zoning jurisdiction. The application includes a conditional use permit for a campground, tent and RV, and a zoning map amendment from RR district to P district to for the proposed Kramer Addition. The application includes a variance to section 6.1-5C related to conventional paving standards. The applicant is proposing the use of crushed concrete or compaction gravel. The legal description for this property is Outlot 24 and the north 1/2 southwest quarter, northwest quarter less outlots 18-20 and 23. North half southeast quarter, northwest quarter, and north half southwest quarter, northeast quarter, and unplatted portion of the northeast quarter and northwest quarter line south and west of the railroad ROW of the section 10, township 154, range 82 west to the City of Minot. The property is unaddressed and lies between 5700 54th Avenue southeast and the railroad right-of-way. Turn it over to staff.
Thank you, Chairman Offerdahl, members of the commission. So, the subject property is bounded in white and depicts the 2 lots proposed to be platted. The little bit, the sliver to the north is actually the dedicated right-of-way. That would be part of this plat. The 600-foot notification area is denoted in pink. The area of the subject application is on the far southeast of the extraterritorial jurisdiction as noted by the teal-colored line on the map. So the zoning of the property and surrounding area is R1 single family, rural residential, and P public district. So the P public district is that darker area to the northeast. The property lies within the conceptual greenway designation, and I provide an explanation of conformity of the proposed project within staff's written report. In short, campgrounds are one of the intended uses within conceptual greenway future land use designation, one of the few desired development types within the conceptual greenway. So here's the master plan that was submitted by the applicant. So the master plan for the area depicts RV spots. These are the larger ones to the southeast of the site plan, bottom right. And tent camper sites closer to the parking area to the north. So 1 group site is planned, and the proposal includes a building that will provide bathroom facilities and an office space. It's really hard to see on this almost blue tinted image, but it is up closer to the parking area. So between 65 and 69 spaces are planned for the site, and the master plan can be found in Exhibit 5 of staff's written report, along with the letter of intent in Exhibit 2. So, and here's another one of the proximity maps that I made. So this map shows distances of 100 feet, 200 feet, and 300 feet from the boundary of the campsite to the surrounding property. So I need to correct the written explanation of this map within the written report. So the original intent was to measure distances from the closest campsites, and that's why closest campsites to the residential surrounding the proposed campsite. Ultimately, I ended up taking the entire boundary. So whatever you read in the written staff report would actually be more conservative because the starting point is further away at the property boundary. So if you were to add 50 to 100 feet from what was noted, so this means the closest home to any of the proposed sites is about 250 feet, not the 200 that the written report noted. The eastern boundary of the campsite abuts the railroad tracks. That's what separates it from the residential to the east. The site is approximately 100 feet from the Parks District Bison Trail. Again, that was the property that was denoted as P Public District. The Parks District has provided a letter of support that can be found in Exhibit 3. So these are the findings of fact. I did structure these a little bit differently. There was a lot to unpack in this staff report, so if you read it all the way through, then you'll know what I'm talking about. You may notice the findings of fact refer to details of the staff analysis section of the written report, as opposed to, otherwise it would be about twice as long, just a numerous amount of facts that go into each of these 4 components of this application. So again, there's a rezone, a preliminary plat, a variance, and a conditional use permit all within this application. So ultimately, all of these 4, including the master plan that needs to be evaluated as part of the P Public Zone Public District request, meet the corresponding evaluative criteria with some conditions. And so I'm going to go over these conditions. So I'm breaking these up into 3 separate recommendations, and why that is because given that there's a variance and conditional use permit, which this body has final decision authority, and then there's other components, the preliminary plat and the zoning map amendment and master plan approval that this body just has recommending authority to city council. And so if we need to break this up into 3 different ones, based on that, that's fine. However, it's very clear to staff that we can convey the message to city council. So first, staff's recommending approval of the major subdivision preliminary plat, the master plan, and the zoning map amendment from rural residential to P Public District with some conditions, and I'll go over these. So as you saw, there's 2 lots that are being created, so we need at least a minimum of 1 easement should be included on the final plat to provide access to Lot 2 from 54th Avenue Southeast. We can't create landlocked pieces of property. Given the master plan, there was meandering roadways through there, and so the easement or easements, again, if more than 1 is required to accommodate the final design, should meet the requirements as determined by the city's engineer. So we just want to make sure that the site functionality is the longevity of that functionality is ensured. And that's, so if it needs more than 1 easement just to depict it without encumbering the entire, lot 1 with an access easement, then so be it. The final plat application will include a report or a letter of approval from the First District Health Unit certifying the land is able to be served by an on-site septic system. The applicant, Matthew Kramer, is actively in discussions, if not completed those discussions with regard to working with First District Health, so that shouldn't be an issue. And here's the variance. So approve a variance to the paving to section 6.1-5C. I should have noted, so there's a dirt roadway that leads up to the site. He's requesting that the site retain its rustic nature and not have paved parking lots that tie directly into no paving all around it. So paving to the parking lot and on-site circulation system may be comprised of crushed concrete, compaction gravel, or other suitable alternative as approved by the city's engineering department. A van accessible ADA compliant parking stall and accessible pathway will be constructed to provide access to the bathroom and office structure, and any other publicly accessible structure on site. So that building that no one could see, we want to make sure that there's an ADA parking stall so that anybody who has accessibility needs are able to park and adequately gain access to that structure. And that's a federal requirement. So we need to, regardless of what the roadway is leading up to it, we need to make sure it's accessible once an individual leaves their vehicle. And then this is the third one, so approve a conditional use permit for a campground subject to the following conditions. So the conditional use permit subject to city council's approval of the major subdivision preliminary plat, major subdivision final plat, zoning map amendment to public district and master plan. Finalized site plan will be provided to the city's engineering department for review. This is kind of a catch-all, necessary local, state, or federal plans and permits necessary for development to include at a minimum floodplain development permit, elevation certificates, and stormwater management plans. There was a late comment that I sent to this body probably about 5 minutes before this meeting. So we received it quite late as well as from the Ward County Water Resource District. Just noting that there could be a potential for 3 dwelling units, and therefore a stormwater management plan may be required. We're going to require one regardless. It's not going to have specific dwelling units on it. It's an RV, so it's a temporary recreational activity. This is addressed, or this will address that regardless. Just any questions? So fire danger signage is required to be posted at the entrance to the camping area to inform patrons of potential fire hazards and restrictions in place. An earthen berm or site obscuring fence shall be constructed and erected wherever parking stalls are oriented in the direction of residential dwellings. It's noted in Exhibit 8. That was that proximity map. The earthen berm or site obscuring fence shall be sufficient in height to mitigate glare from vehicle headlights. Wherever on site, so the topography there is, as you can imagine, it can be rough and it varies. So wherever the topography is in their favor, that naturally contains headlight glare on the subject properties, then obviously you don't need to berm it. Sound or noise projecting from the subject property shall not exceed 55 decibels during the hours of 7 a.m. to 11 p.m. daily and 50 decibel during the hours of 11 p.m. until 7 a.m. So I pulled these decibel levels from our city's noise ordinance. Well, this is in the county, so we can't apply our city's noise ordinance, but we can if it's part of a land use decision, and that's why it's a condition of approval. So we want to make sure that the neighboring property owners aren't put out by whatever, loud music or screaming or whatever noise might be coming from the campground. The developer shall continue to work with First District Health. Kind of touched on this already in a different part of the approval. And then operations will utilize a campground host to monitor patron activities and address issues in a timely fashion. So the campground host will be the only one that can reside on site longer than the 14-day maximum. This isn't a housing solution for Minot. So this is a campground, so 14-day max. It's pretty standard. It's also written in the code as far as a maximum for campgrounds. But the on-site host will help to mitigate some of those concerns from evening activities. So the main thing is ensuring that this, this host is not there longer than 188 days without relocating, playing musical chairs within the same campground, because you can't be in the same spot for longer than 180 days without being considered a dwelling unit. So this is an additional condition. I did receive a phone call from Tom Klein he's one of the neighboring property owners. He's also on the Ward County Water Resource District, and he's also one of the board members of the Sundry Township for which this property resides. He had mentioned that everybody driving down there is tired of eating dust, is his words. Regardless of that, we do not have roadway authority in the extraterritorial jurisdiction. We have zoning authorities, so private property use authority. So defer to Sundry Township, and that's what this additional conditions catch-all saying. This is your area, this is your jurisdiction, so the applicant will comply with requirements, if any, of the Sundre Township related to 54th Avenue Southeast and any approach, so any driveway connection to 54th Avenue Southeast. And that should be a catch-all to defer, if they have specific requirements that they ask of Mr. Kramer, then that'll be up to Sundre Township. And with that, I will stand for questions.
Any questions from the commissioners for the staff?
Is that a total of 4 recommendations then, correct?
Chairman Offerdahl, Commissioner Wiganist, so there's 3 with a modification.
Zoning map,
I've got the
master
variance,
plan, paving.
and I can go through one by one if we want to do that.
We don't want to go through them, I don't think, do we? You got 3? Does that count the last one you added?
Right, and that is the modification.
Okay.
So it's the only condition that wasn't included in the written staff report. Give me a minute here.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman. Is this in the floodway?
It is in the floodplain.
Floodplain. And it's designated a greenway within the floodplain? And what's the distinction between just plain old floodplain and greenway?
Oh, that's a good question. So Chairman Offerdahl, Commissioner Kibler, it's the future land use designation recognizes that particular conceptual greenway was effectively the extent of the flood waters in 2011. And so it's going to be different than the existing FEMA regulated floodplain. So whereas the conceptual greenway is the community's kind of commitment to what makes the most sense given our history with flooding, and what would we like to see in these areas. The floodplain is going to have specific regulations, whether it's engineering or construction types, that how you build within the floodplain. So the two are actually distinct, but know that it's in alignment with the city's plan, that conceptual greenway, which spans obviously the entirety of the river, quite a bit in each direction in some places. It happens to also be in the floodplain, and therefore is going to need to abide by all the FEMA regulations as well.
Can I ask, do you know about how far this is from the old KOA campgrounds?
Yeah. Chairman Offerdahl, Commissioner Nisdahl, it's very close. It's
That's what I was
probably, I'd probably defer to Kramer. I'm the applicant, Matthew Kramer. I'm sure he's aware of precisely the distance of.
Yeah,
It's pretty close. It's very close.
I was thinking it was, I just couldn't find it on the map when I was looking.
Any other questions for city staff? Any other questions? No. Seeing none, I'll open up the public hearing. Anybody in attendance wishes to speak on behalf of this agenda item? Come on up, sir. Please state your name and address, and you can write it down on a notebook there. I think there's a sheet up there, is there?
Yeah. Matthew Kramer, and I live at 6002 50th Street Southeast here in Minot. Well, I guess, first of all, I'd like to thank the planning staff and the commission for their time. This has been a very long and bumpy road. Some of you have been in meetings with me for hours. But I would like to bring the opportunity to bring this outdoor recreation area to Minot. We use the bison plant as a family, the trail, multiple times a week, all year long. We enjoy it. We've noticed it's becoming really popular. And one of the things we think of is the parking. The neighbors, obviously, I would hate it. So one of the entire reasons for that off-street parking is for the bison plant, and the trail that we want to put in our campground, hoping to ease some of the stress. We've personally camped all around the country. We've hiked all over the country. We've all stayed at campgrounds that are less than desirable, and we'd like to bring the things that we like, that we've seen, to Minot, like the bathrooms. We've all seen the painted chip OSB board bathroom stalls. We plan on having individual rooms where you just walk in and that's your bathroom. And we're going to follow all FEMA requirements. We're going to be building above the floodplain requirements. I'm a licensed general contractor. I've been here in Minot for 15 years. So we're planning on following all the guidelines to the letter. As far as the variance, I personally use crushed concrete on my driveway, and I've used it on projects around the town commercially, and everyone loves it. It dries quick, it's good grip, traction, and it sheds water really fast. That's all I have. If you have any questions.
Thank you. Any questions for Mr. Kramer? I guess I got one question too. On the recommendations that they're making, was there any issues with any of the recommendations that city staff was? You're okay with all that?
Yeah, I have no issues. It's just figure it out.
Yep. Any other questions for Mr. Kramer? Okay. We'll have you hold tight just in case something comes up, but I appreciate
yeah.
it. Thank you.
Okay.
Is there anybody else that would like to speak on behalf of this agenda item? Is there anybody that'd like to speak in opposition of this agenda item? Anybody want to speak in opposition of this agenda item? Okay. Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing. Turn it over to the commissioners.
Motion to approve based on staff finding of fact and all recommendations.
Motion to approve by Commissioner Wagnus,
Second.
second by Commissioner Bacon. Any discussion? Any discussion? No? All right, call the roll.
Demekis.
Yes.
Domes. Bacon.
Yes.
Buchalter.
Yes.
Iverson.
Yes.
Kibler.
Yes.
Nesdal.
Yes.
Offerdahl.
Yes.
Fontanilla.
Yes.
Wagonist.
Yes.
Motion carries.
All right, motion carries. Moving on to item number 9, case 2022-11-05, zoning text amendment, fall cleanup. This is a public hearing request by City of Minot for zoning text amendment to accommodate changes to the land development ordinance of the City of Minot. So I'll go ahead and just turn this over to the city right now instead of reading all these chapters. I'll let.
Thank you, Chairman Offerdahl and members of the commission. So last item. So I'll give a brief overview. So this text amendments are fall cleanup. So we had 14 total changes. Most of them were just minor adjustments to clarify the existing code. There is one new use, banquet reception hall. There's new signage permitted, which is iconic signs. So this is just signage that may have a unique history and meaning within the city and may not conform to design requirements for new signage. So this would allow it to be replaced and memorialized. R3 district is declared a legacy district, so all new townhouse developments would follow the RM medium density residential district moving forward. And there's only a handful of properties that are zoned R3C as it is. So of course, existing R3C can remain, but they'd be encouraged to rezone to RM if redevelopment occurs. Once there are no more R3C properties out there, we just remove the district entirely from the zoning code. So that's how that'll be handled. We just don't want to create any more R3C. So presently we have 8 residential districts. Once we remove this, we'd still have 7 residential districts. And then removal of the zoning ordinance steering committee from the text amendment process, and I'll elaborate on that a bit more. And change to how variances are evaluated at the planning commission. And of course, I'll elaborate on that as well. So with regard to, excuse me, there we go. With regard to removal of the zoning ordinance steering committee, As you can see the process here, so if you look at the zoning ordinance text amendments, that's the second row. The planning division does an initial review. Of course, they're the ones who write it. And then provide it to the zoning ordinance steering committee who reviews it. And it goes to planning commission who reviews it. And then it goes to city council for the final decision. At the end of the day, planning division will still write these, present it to planning commission. And you've seen how Exhibit 1 looks. I write the code. You can see track changes. Then I provide also a purpose and summary statement, paragraph below it, so you kind of understand why is there a change being proposed. At the end of the day, that's how Grand Forks, Bismarck, Williston, Fargo all handle it. Planning staff generates the text amendments. They're presented directly to planning commission, and city council makes a decision. They don't have a zoning ordinance steering committee review every text amendment. Now, when there's an overhaul, like there was that just got completed in April of last year, wrapped up a major overhaul, then it makes sense to have a committee to ensure that everything is heading in the right direction. Well, that's done, and so it just doesn't make sense to continue that process. It really delays, it probably adds about 4 to 6 weeks to the process of writing and amending the text. And sometimes there's just quick changes that I can write up in a couple hours. I could have it before you. You'll probably, this was noted as fall cleanup, I just as well clean up as I notice things and get it cleaned up so it's done. So you might see a couple of these, and unless you have preferences, knowing that you won't have a recommendation from the zoning ordinance steering committee, I think this body is more than capable of evaluating whether or not this is a big deal or it's not. I'll let you know if it's kind of a big one, just like I'm doing now. I'm going over this particular one because it might be of specific concern to you. I will say zoning ordinance steering committee voted unanimously to stop having them be part of every single text amendment. So the very committee is recommending that this process be changed and just go with planning commission to be the appointed body to review these text amendments. So specifically how variances are evaluated. So our present code, so we evaluate the following criteria applicable to the variance, and we've got 6 different options: shape of property, topography, exceptional practical difficulties, unique hardship, neighborhood, will it cause problems, and comp plan, does it align with the plan? The logic, this just ends up being very difficult to logically go through this and make a strong recommendation to planning commission. I think also as you're reading some of the reports and coming up with your own evaluation, it can be a bit head scratching as well, just given that there's this a la carte of different ones, which ones are applicable, not applicable, and whether or not the criteria is met or not met. Ends up being, I have not seen a variances process quite the way that this is written. And so what's being proposed is that, so a hardship would be determined by at least one of the following. So the shape of a property, topography, or some exceptional practical difficulty. So first step in this 2-part process is to establish if a hardship exists. If so, then you move on to ensure that the neighborhood won't be put out by an approval of a variance, and ultimately that the comp plan is still being fulfilled. Very rarely will you see a comp plan conflict with a variance proposal. Comp plan's usually so high level, it's not going to get into specific properties, especially at that variance level development. So this would very much help clean up the process. You have 1 of 3 options to qualify, I guess, for a hardship, and then the applicants, it'll be easier on them to write a narrative to explain why their variance is a hardship and then why it won't affect their neighbors in a negative manner. So staff's recommending the Planning Commission adopt staff findings of fact and recommend approval to City Council of the text amendments provided in Exhibit 1. So I'll stand for questions.
Thank you. Any questions for city staff? questions? Okay, open the public
Yeah,
hearing.
Mr. Chairman, I just have very brief questions. Two really. What is iconic signage? And two, does this steering committee know that it's being dissolved?
Right, Chairman Offerdahl and Commissioner Kibler. So the zoning ordinance steering committee is not being dissolved. It just won't be meeting for every nuanced change to the text. If there is an overhaul of, say, an entire article, it's broken up into 13, 14 articles. If we take on an entire article, or if there's a specific controversial aspect that we want to just have that additional chime in. Again, the zoning ordinance steering committee, what it is it's those within the community that are have the professional background that are involved in development. So we've got a surveyor, an engineer, an architect, somebody representing Minot area builders, and then you've got a planning commission representative, which is Commissioner Bauman, and then there would be an assignment of a council member, an alderman or woman. So that's what comprises our, am I missing somebody? Oh, no, I think that's everybody. An architect, yeah, thought I said that, but maybe not. So yeah, so it's completely multifaceted evaluation of the text to see kind of how it's all going to.
You could always pull them together, is that the idea?
They're still appointed, so they're not getting off the hook. It's just, they recognize that there's certain things, there's a difference between, there's a conflict between being transparent and responsive. And this is one of those where I showed you there's planning division staff is more than capable of writing the text amendments. And it's not done in a vacuum. There's public hearing at Planning Commission to talk about it if there's concerns. It's 13 individuals on Planning Commission that are citizens that can catch something if there's something not right. And further, it goes to City Council, and yet again has another public hearing where 7 elected members can catch something if something's awry. Not to mention that we notice in the paper, and then it goes to a second reading. So that process is timely. And some of the texts, you don't know, it's a 310-page document. Until you get a development proposal, you do not know precisely how that code is going to all come together to affect a particular development. And when you see something that you knew you never intended to occur, playing out and eliminating development from occurring when it's not really providing any value, mitigating any concerns, then it should be adjusted if there's no purpose to it. And so it allows us to be more responsive and present that. And I have every bit of confidence that this body can evaluate and recognize when certain changes and so I think it just makes sense. Now, if we're blowing up the whole ordinance and rewriting the whole thing, then it makes sense, because that's too much to handle and evaluate at one public hearing. And these are more of these one-offs that are very simple. So if there is anything in particular that you see that, you're questioning, the iconic signage, perfect. So I'll explain it in more detail. I'll move on to that just in a second. I'm going to grab the staff report. Despite writing it, I do not remember every single word as part of it.
It was a very light question I could ask.
Oh, okay.
you.
Yeah, so
I
ultimately-
really not need a deep answer for it.
Sure. So iconic signage ultimately is, we've got certain signage in the city. So this was written with the M building signage in mind. And so we do not allow rooftop signage. And whether or not we go back to permitting rooftop signage, clearly back when this ordinance was written, it was eliminated. It was determined that it wasn't a desirable architectural feature. However, there are certain instances where you might want to see it. I mean, the Arnie's sign is also a rooftop sign. SRB sign is also a rooftop sign. So anything that's really sticks above the roof line and you can tell it's roof mounted. So whether or not they qualify as iconic, I don't know how long they've been there. And again, this kind of lays out what constitutes an iconic sign versus not an iconic sign. There's got to be some history and value and to the city as an icon. And this language was largely pulled from Fargo. They've got a similar ordinance that kind of understands that, you know, modern sign standards do not always facilitate some of those unique design elements that do add some character to an area, add some value. Maybe don't want to see it all over the place, but it gives that tie to the history of a community. So hopefully that answered questions.
Got it. Any other questions? Okay, seeing none, I'll open the public hearing. Anybody wish to speak on behalf of this agenda item? Anybody wish to speak on behalf? Anybody wish to speak in opposition to this agenda item? Anybody wish to speak on behalf or against this agenda item? Okay, seeing none, I'll close the public hearing, turn it over to the commissioners for a motion.
Well, I'll get one last one in there. I'll move to approve.
Motion to approve by Commissioner Demakis,
I'll second.
second by Commissioner Holcoulter. Any discussion? Any discussion? Seeing none, call the roll.
Demakis,
Yes.
Domes, Bacon,
Yes.
Hochhalter,
Yes.
Iverson,
Yes.
Kibler,
Yes.
Nesdal,
Yes.
Offerdahl,
Yes.
Fontanella,
Yes.
Wagonest.
Yes.
Motion carries.
All right, item number 10, other business. Any other business?
Yes. So Chairman Offerdahl, members of the commission, so just a reminder, the 2023 meeting dates and times have been adopted. We can resend those out, and that brings me to another aspect. So I want to make sure that I have adequate email addresses. We just went through this transition from .org to .gov, and if you have gone through that, then you understand that it's a process. So I just want to make sure that you're receiving our emails, and if you have not received anything over the last week or two, then make sure you reach out to me directly, and we'll figure out what's going on. So I just want to make sure there's that open line of communication. Our January meeting is January 4th, 2023 here in council chambers. So that's when we'll meet again. I'll try to get some printouts of the full meeting schedule for 2023, and that's it. That's all I've got.
Okay, appreciate it. Any questions? Any other business? Any other business? No? All right, with that, meeting's adjourned.